Florida, once a land of sunlit beaches and quiet dreams. But now, look closer. Under the highways, tents in supermarket parking lots, families sleeping in their cars, at gas stations before sunrise, children brushing their teeth. What would you do if your rent was higher than your income? What if having nowhere to go meant breaking the law?
I think it's a horrible law. I think it's very dehumanizing.
This isn't someone else's problem. It could be anyone, maybe you. In the shadow of palm trees and luxury condos, there's another Florida. One where poverty is punished and hope fades quietly. Welcome to RoamKind, and welcome to the truth most people never see. Number 1. The past. A dream once had. Once hailed as a sun-drenched retirement paradise, Florida in the 1980s was a beacon of hope for millions of working-class retirees and veterans. They traded harsh winters in Ohio, Michigan, and New York for quiet streets in Sarasota, Fort Myers, and Naples, places where manicured lawns, swaying palm trees, and friendly neighbors painted the picture of the American dream. But dreams, like coastlines, can erode. Today, that same dream is slipping through the cracks, one luxury condominium at a time. A quiet shift in public policy has reshaped Florida's priorities. Social programs once designed to protect the vulnerable have been pushed aside, replaced by an aggressive focus on tourism, luxury development, and oceanfront real estate. Between 2001 and 2018, Florida diverted nearly $2 billion from the Sadowski Housing Trust Fund, money that was supposed to build affordable housing through programs like SHIP and SAIL. As a result, almost 94,000 affordable units were never built, according to the Florida Policy Institute. Miami Urban Institute shows.
It's not a crime. It's just unfortunate that I'm homeless.
We built this state with our hands and our pensions, says Walter, age 74, a former construction worker now living in his van in North Fort Myers. Now, they want us invisible. And the data supports his voice. More than 31,000 people in Florida are experiencing homelessness as of early 2025, according to the United States Department of Housing and Urban Development. From January of 2023 to January of 2024, the number of people experiencing homelessness across the United States increased by 18%, reaching approximately 770,000 individuals on a single night. Once serene cities are now home to makeshift encampments, rising eviction rates among the elderly, and neighborhoods so unstable that even law enforcement hesitates to intervene. How did a state once known for peaceful retirements become a battleground in America's housing crisis? The answer lies not just in economic policies, but in empathy, or the lack of it. Florida's transformation is a mirror held up to the rest of the nation. If the very people who built this paradise can no longer live in it, what does that say about the values we've come to accept? This is not just a Florida problem. It is a national wake-up call. And maybe it's time we asked, who gets to dream? And who gets left behind when the dream is sold? Number 2, a disaster made housing. You might picture Florida as palm trees and paradise, but for many residents, it's becoming the epicenter of a deepening poverty and homelessness crisis. Ask yourself, what would you do if your rent cost more than your income could cover? In Tampa, the average rent for a one-bedroom apartment has climbed to over $2,200 per month. almost 3 times what it was a decade ago. If you're in Miami, according to Rent Cafe, the cost can exceed $2,700. Meanwhile, according to BLS USA Facts, February 2025, the average weekly income is $1,187, which amounts to approximately $61,600 per year. $1,187 multiplied by 52 weeks. Now think, could you keep up? For many working families, rent is no longer just a monthly bill. It's a daily burden. If you're receiving public support, the margin is razor thin. There's no room for saving, no chance for a reset, no way to move forward. So why is this happening? One major reason is that Florida does not have rent control laws. This has allowed real estate developers and investment firms to purchase entire housing blocks and increase prices dramatically. What were once community-centered homes now serve as high-return investment properties. Unit by unit, entire neighborhoods are changing. And from the state's side, there are no enforceable requirements to preserve affordable housing. No protective policies ensuring access for lower-income residents. The housing market is left entirely to unregulated forces, which often prioritize profit over people. As a result, hundreds of families across Florida face eviction and displacement every single week. Could this happen to you? This isn't just about rent. It's about whether you, your neighbors, or your children will still have a place to call home tomorrow. Quick thoughts. Is housing still a basic right where you live? Or has it become a luxury? We'd love to hear what you think. Leave a comment below. Is Florida's housing crisis unique or part of a larger global pattern? And if you like this kind of candid storytelling, welcome to RoamKind. Like, subscribe, and let's keep asking the hard questions together. Now back to the basics, where affordable is slowly becoming a memory. Number 3. The left behind. Behind Florida's polished beachfronts and luxury towers lies a quieter, deeper truth, one that rarely makes the headlines. It's the human cost of the growing poverty and homelessness crisis, where those who once helped build our communities now find themselves quietly slipping through the cracks. Take Gloria, a 73-year-old former receptionist from Bradenton. After her spouse passed away, her homeowner's insurance premiums more than doubled over 3 years, part of a broader state trend where rates have surged over 40% since 2020. Without family or savings to fall back on, she could no longer afford her home. Today, she lives in a weathered SUV tucked behind a strip mall. Her daily meals, cold oatmeal, and instant coffee. "I never thought the final chapter of my life would feel so invisible," she says softly, staring out at a Florida sunset she can no longer call her own. Then there's Robert, a 65-year-old retired warehouse worker living on a fixed income. After a back injury ended his career early, he now cycles 7 miles, 3 days a week, to a food distribution center in Clearwater. Last month, he arrived only to find the shelves already empty. Having to choose between groceries and medicine, it doesn't feel like retirement, he shares. It feels like waiting. Their voices often fade into the background, yet their stories are not rare. As of 2025, older adults are among the fastest-growing at-risk groups for homelessness in Florida. What led us here? For many, it wasn't a mistake. It was a series of quiet shifts. Rising rents, insurance hikes, and high taxes slowly eroding what little security they had left. So we must ask, is prosperity measured by new towers and tourism, or by how we honor those who came before us. Gloria and Robert aren't statistics. They are neighbors, elders, stories still being written. And in this new Florida, who gets to move forward and who quietly fades behind the progress? Number 4. Policy, the silent source of crisis. Behind the roadside tents and unopened pharmacy doors, there's a deeper force quietly shaping the poverty and homelessness crisis. And it's closer to you than you might think. Policy. When lawmakers in Florida consider cutting programs like Medicaid, SNAP, and housing assistance, it might sound reasonable on paper. Budget balance, encouraging self-reliance, efficient allocation. You've heard those terms before. But what do they mean when you, or someone you know, can't afford rent, food, or basic medication? Take Carolyn, a 78-year-old woman from Miami. Her story was featured on national news. She now lives in her car, eating one meal a day, surviving only on Social Security. "I look at it as a journey," she said. She uses a Medicare-supported gym membership just to shower. At night, she sleeps upright. Her legs are swollen from hours in the driver's seat. Could that be you someday, or someone you love? In 2025, Florida risks losing over $1.6 billion in food assistance. Medicaid cuts could affect millions across the state. Right now, over 3 million Floridians rely on SNAP, and 5 million depend on Medicaid for health care. If those programs disappear, how do you pick yourself back up? Florida's tax model, often praised for being investor-friendly with no personal income tax, also means less money for safety nets. When the economy dips, programs that serve the voiceless are often the first to go. So here's the hard question. If your rent climbs, your medicine price doubles, and support disappears, what would you do? Do we measure progress by the height of buildings, or by how we care for the people who live beneath them? Carolyn's story isn't an exception. It's a signal. It could be anyone, even you. And if we keep cutting the floor out from under people, how many more will fall quietly, invisibly next? Number 5. Hunger in the middle of prosperity. In a country that once symbolized abundance, can you imagine a time when a warm, home-cooked meal is no longer a guarantee? You don't have to imagine it. It's already happening. Right here in Florida, one of the wealthiest states in the nation, people line up every day. You might pass them near grocery stores, outside churches, or in corners of public parks, quiet, resilient, waiting. They're not looking for handouts. They're showing up because there is no other option. In 2025, Feeding Tampa Bay reports that 1 in 6 adults in the region faces food insecurity. Even more sobering, 1 in 7 seniors must choose between food, rent, or critical medications. What would you choose if you could no longer afford all 3? This isn't the result of natural disaster. It's a product of economic pressure and policy decisions. In the past 3 years, food prices have risen to 2-decade highs. Eggs, vegetables, milk, once basic staples, are now out of reach for many households. Meanwhile, federal nutrition support like SNAP has been reduced, and temporary aid from the pandemic has quietly faded. At the same time, local food banks, once lifelines of support, are now stretched thin, struggling with low supplies and fewer volunteers. Sandra, a retired nurse in Pinellas County, goes to a pop-up food pantry twice a week. After rent and utilities, she shares, there's nothing left. But even a bag of canned soup and bread means I can sleep without an empty stomach. This could be your neighbor. It could be your future. So ask yourself, In a place surrounded by prosperity, how is hunger still this real? What kind of system lets people go without, while luxury towers rise nearby? This isn't just about food. It's a quiet reflection of the deeper poverty and homelessness crisis, and the uncomfortable truth that in this version of prosperity, not everyone gets to eat. Number 6. People still working. You wake up before dawn, lace up your shoes, and head to your job at a bakery in Orlando. Just like Carlos Rivera once did. He baked bread that warmed a community, earned $14 per hour, paid his dues, and followed the rules. But when rental prices surged, rising more than 45%, in many Florida cities over the past few years, his paycheck simply couldn't keep up. One rent hike later, he lost his place. Now, he sleeps in his car with his young daughter Rosa, trying to shield her from the uncertainty outside. You might think this could never happen to you, but what if your rent suddenly jumped $400? Carlos's situation isn't isolated. He represents a growing group of working Floridians, people who serve your food, clean your hospitals, and stock your grocery shelves. They work full-time, yet after expenses and significant taxes, they're left with barely enough to get by. In the year 2025, the average rent for a one-bedroom apartment in places like Orlando or Jacksonville is over $1,900 per month. Meanwhile, a full-time worker earning between $12 and $14 per hour brings home far less than that. To afford housing alone, you would need to work more than 90 hours per week. Then there's Monica Nguyen, a single mother and home care aide. She worked overnight shifts, cared for the elderly, and still ended up without shelter after one unexpected hospital bill. "I thought I was doing everything right," she says quietly, "but one emergency, and it all fell apart." These stories aren't just cautionary tales. They reflect a broader question. What happens when having a job is no longer enough to keep you safe? So perhaps the real question isn't, how did this happen to them? It's, could you be next? Number 7. Homeless children, the forgotten victims. In the same state known for sunshine and tourism, many children are spending nights without a bed. That contrast lies at the heart of Florida's poverty and housing crisis, and it's affecting young lives in ways that are often hidden. Right now, thousands of children across Florida are living without stable housing. Some share small motel rooms with multiple family members. Others stay temporarily with relatives. In some cases, families turn to shelters or must rely on sleeping in vehicles when no other option is available. In 2025, Florida's point-in-time data shows that nearly 40% of people without permanent housing in regions like Orlando are children or older adults. These children may not appear different on the outside, but many face daily challenges that go unnoticed. Without a consistent address, it becomes harder for families to enroll their children in school or keep them in one place long enough to succeed. Some students arrive tired, without adequate meals or learning materials, not because they're unwilling to learn, but because their circumstances make it harder to focus. One child reportedly asked their teacher, "Will we have to move again this week?" That simple question reflects a reality faced by many children growing up in housing instability. According to reports from national organizations, families with children made up nearly 30% of Florida's unhoused population in 2023. While public education systems offer protections through policies like the McKinney-Vento Act and nonprofits such as Second Harvest work to provide food and assistance, the growing need is stretching resources thin. So it's worth asking, in a state full of economic activity and growth, how can so many children still lack a safe, stable place to call home? What does that say about the future we're shaping? Every child deserves the chance to learn, grow, and feel safe. Recognizing this issue is the first step toward ensuring no young voice goes unheard. Number 8. Hell hidden in heaven. As you stroll past upscale malls and palm-lined boulevards, you might never imagine what's unfolding just beyond the tourist trail. But beneath the towering highways and in quiet corners, tent communities are growing, silent witnesses to Florida's worsening poverty and homelessness crisis. You may not see them from your hotel balcony, but families are living in tents, some with children, some clinging to the last thread of hope. These makeshift shelters aren't just signs of hardship. They're desperate pleas for help. In some areas, even local law enforcement steps back, not from indifference, but because situations have become too dangerous for routine intervention. Could you feel at ease knowing this was happening next door? Meanwhile, billions in taxpayer money filled tourist campaigns and luxury festivals. In 2025, Florida dedicated over $6 billion to tourism promotions, while cutting budgets for mental health services, transitional shelters, and affordable housing by nearly 15%. Isn't that a troubling contrast? Before major events or international conferences, homeless encampments are cleared, yet people aren't sheltered, just moved away. One Seminole County resident, Rodney, counted during a January point-in-time survey, was arrested just hours later for panhandling. "They took me like I was trash," he said. But at least the city checked a box. Does this feel like a solution to homelessness or a way to hide it? According to HUD's January 2025 report, Florida now ranks third in the nation for unsheltered homelessness. That's not a statistic. It's your neighbor, your delivery driver, perhaps even your next-door acquaintance. And the actual number might be 2 to 3 times higher, something advocates believe the official count masks. So here's the question you have to ask yourself. If this hidden hell moved closer to your street, would you turn away or step closer? Heaven for some, a hiding place for others. Now, you've seen what most tourists never will. Type 2 Floridas in the comments if you felt that jarring contrast. The next segment dives even deeper. You won't believe what's happening in the heart of Miami. Number 9. Miami, Parallel City. You might be drawn to Miami for its glamour, international investment conferences, oceanfront luxury dinners that cost more than some families spend in a week. As of the point-in-time count conducted on January 23, 2025, according to the Miami-Dade County Homeless Trust, there were 858 individuals living without shelter, the lowest number in over a decade, marking a 17% decrease from the previous year. In total, there were 3,728 people experiencing homelessness across Miami-Dade County, including areas such as downtown and Overtown. Approximately 77% of them were receiving temporary housing support. Have you ever wondered how a place that radiates wealth can quietly hide such deep social imbalance? While millions are invested in beautifying tourist districts and hosting global events, funding for public housing, mental health support, and homelessness reintegration programs has been systematically reduced. The contrast is stark. It's not that support doesn't exist. It's just not meant for everyone. In fact, several areas of the city have grown so unstable that some police departments admit they only enter when absolutely necessary. That's not a statement about crime, it's a statement about neglect. You can't police what a city has chosen not to heal. This isn't the result of sudden economic collapse. It reflects a strategic choice, where public image takes precedence over human dignity. There is a law, HB 1365, that requires a ban on camping in public places, effective October 1st, 2024. When city officials remove tent communities before big events, they don't relocate people, they erase them from sight. For those living in these conditions, Miami isn't just a city, it's a mirror that reflects back a harsh truth. In a place where status and wealth dominate, your value is often judged by what you own, not who you are. So here's a question worth asking. What does it say about a society when high taxes fund luxury, but not basic shelter? It says we've lost sight of what truly defines a community, not its skyline, but how it treats those with the least. When public resources elevate appearance, but abandon need, the city doesn't just become divided, it becomes disconnected from its own people. Number 10. Miserable criminalization. When does survival become a punishable offense? In parts of Florida, the answer is right now. If you lie down on a park bench, sleep in a public space, or find shelter under a bridge, you may be issued a civil penalty, not for disrupting the peace, but for having no place to go. Under legislation like Florida's House Bill 1365, effective October 1st, 2024, individuals experiencing homelessness cannot be fined directly under state law. Rather, the bill prohibits local governments from allowing public camping or sleeping and does not establish any personal fines up to $1,400 per incident. That means someone without a roof can still be charged for resting. It sounds like a policy meant to keep order, but who does it really protect? For many, it starts with a fine they simply cannot pay. That unpaid fine becomes a civil record, which then disqualifies them from applying for housing or jobs. Over time, that person is not just unhoused, they are locked out of recovery. Courts, once meant to uphold justice, are now overburdened with civil cases that escalate the crisis instead of resolving it. You miss a court date, and you're penalized again. You can't pay, and your options vanish. And the worst part? This isn't rare. It's systemic. An advocate in Jacksonville recently said, "You can't fine someone for not having a place to go, but we are." That isn't hyperbole. That's today's reality for thousands across the state. A few cities have started to explore alternatives: community service, social referrals, safe zones. But such programs are still isolated, not the norm. So ask yourself, are we solving homelessness or just pushing it further out of sight? What kind of system penalizes people not for what they've done, but for what they lack? Because when resting in public becomes a violation, we're not just enforcing laws, we're erasing dignity, one ticket at a time. How did today's story make you feel? Did it challenge the way you see Florida or the world around you? At RoamKind, we believe honest storytelling can awaken empathy, and that real change starts with asking the right questions. This video isn't here to accuse or divide. It's here to open eyes and remind us we all belong to the same community. If you've seen hope or solutions in your town, share them below. Because sometimes change begins with a single story. We're not here to represent any political view, just to shine a light on stories that often go unseen. So tell us, which part struck you the most? Have you witnessed similar struggles where you live? Drop a comment, share your thoughts, and if this journey meant something to you, don't forget to subscribe to RoamKind. Thank you for watching, and see you in the next video.